It's quite unlikely that you don't recognise what this is a picture of. This is a picture of a very important video game called Pac-Man. It was first produced in 1980. It's a Japanese game, and it massively fed into the popularisation of video games. It was an incredibly popular game, to the extent where now, 37 years later, it's still recognisable in a way that most of the games from 1980, if I put those on the screen, you wouldn't recognise them. So iconic that in 2010 the Google Doodle was a little game which you could play which was based on Pac-Man. You are going to have a go at making your own maze game, and you're going to base it around the classic arcade game Pac-Man. To create the game, you are going to use a piece of software called Game Maker. You'll find Game Maker in Shortcuts and in ICT, and it's called Game Maker 8. When it comes up, there's two versions. There's one you can buy online, and there's a free version. Most of the things you need to be able to do, you can do perfectly well in the free version. So continue using what they call the light edition. Give it a second and it comes up on the screen. We can hide the tutorials, we don't need those, and we get ourselves a nice, at the moment, blank grey screen. Well, the first thing we need to do is start producing some characters, and we're going to start by making the characters in a very, very simple way. I'm going to use PowerPoint to make it. So for now I'm going to get rid of that, and I'm going to insert from shapes. I'm going to insert this shape here, which, as you will notice, looks quite remarkably like a Pac-Man shape. Now I can change the colour if I want. I can be very, very traditional if I like, by right mouse clicking and going to format shape and change the colour to a nice yellow, and there I have my nice simple Pac-Man shape. Now to save it so I can use it, I don't want to go file and save on PowerPoint, because I don't want to save this as a PowerPoint. I want to just save this image. So I right mouse click onto the shape. I might have to click it a couple of times and save as a picture. Now I'm going to save it somewhere I can find it, which in my case, to make it easier to find, I have of course made some folders. So I've got a Year 8 Computing and IT folder. I've got a folder for my maze game, and I've actually got a folder for my resources, and in here I'm going to put my Pac-Man. So there he is, and save that, and I'll go back to Game Maker. Now in video games, sprites are called, beg your pardon, images that you use in the game are called sprites. Get it the right way around. So I now need to put in a sprite image to use. Now you see later on that there's a separation between sprites and objects, and you'll see later on why that separation is made. But to start with, we just want to put the pictures in. So resources, create a sprite. In other words, make an image that can be used in the game. And the name of this, well, I'm going to call this, for reasons you'll see in a second, Pac-Man facing right. Now later on in the game, once you've got lots and lots of pictures, it'll be much easier if you use long descriptive names. Otherwise later on people will be saying to you, well, which one of these is your food, or which one of these is your dying Pac-Man? And you say, I don't know, I've called them all Sprite 1. So having descriptive names will be much easier later on. Now I need to load the picture that I want to be, that one. I've got various pictures in my stuff here, and there's the one I'm going to use, just a simple basic Pac-Man. Okay, open him up, and my immediate reaction to him is he's a bit big, but I'm going to live with that for the moment. I'm just going to click OK. Now, as I said, the sprite is just a picture. In the game we also have things called objects. Objects are things you can do things with. Now that might be move them around the screen. It might be things you can fire at each other. It might be monsters that can chase you around. It might be food that you can eat. But objects are things in the game that can do something. So the next thing we need to do is create a sprite. And this time, beg your pardon, talking rubbish, this time I don't need to make a sprite. I need to make an object. So create object, that's better. And the object I'm going to create is called Pac-Man, not Pac-Man, just Pac-Man. And the picture I'm going to use is Pac-Man facing right. I'm going to click OK. And now what I need next, so I've got a Pac-Man facing right sprite, a Pac-Man object, and what I finally need is I need a room. And a room is a space in which I can play the game. And for now I'm just going to put that on there, and into that room I'm going to put my Pac-Man, who is far too big. So what I've done so far is I've put pictures I want to use into the game, and they're called sprites. Objects in the game are things I can do things with. Now the reason an object and a sprite are separate is because I might want to change which picture I use for this object. And fairly obviously I want my Pac-Man, when he's moving around the maze, to be able to face right, but also face left and face up and face down. So the object will use 4 different sprites to make the Pac-Man look like he's facing in the direction he's going. And finally I've made a room, which is just a space in which the game takes place.